Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Mango Oblivion Plays, and we're going to be going over the top decks from the 2024 Pokemon World Championships. These decks are some of the ones from the top 16 competitors, and I picked the version of the deck that placed the highest. So this is all the different versions or like main attackers that made the top 16, and then I picked the highest ranking version of each. Let's get going and see what we've got. Now, the deck that came in first place at the World Championships was an Iron Thorns EX deck, and this deck wasn't one that a lot of people pegged as a championships winner. This deck revolves around, you guessed it, Iron Thorns EX, and it's the only Pokemon in the deck. This is because of its ability Initialization. So as long as that Pokemon's in the active spot, and since it's the only Pokemon you have, it's the only one that can be, all Pokemon with a rule box don't have abilities unless they're future Pokemon. So basically, this is going to be shutting off Charizard EX, Gardevoir EX. Really, any of the major other players in the tournament aren't going to be able to do much with their abilities thanks to Iron Thorns EX being in the active spot. The rest of the deck is really about disruption, getting the other player to not be able to do what they want to do. And there's lots of cards in this deck that do that. One such is Giovanni's Charisma. This lets you attach an energy card to your Pokemon if you discard an energy, or no, you put an energy card back into their hand. So you're slowing down their energy attachment with Giovanni's Charisma, as well as attaching energy for yourself. Let's see, what other? We got Boss's Orders, which makes your opponent switch. Judge resets their hand. Crushing Hammer gets rid of their energy. Canceling Cologne can turn off their abilities if they're not rule box Pokemon. Um, and Lost Vacuum can be used to get rid of tools, stuff like that. Basically, this deck is all about disruption and turning off everybody else's strategy. It did win. It is a viable deck. Um, but when I've used a deck similar to this, it's been very hit or miss. So um, definitely a challenging deck to play. The player who did use this deck did lose their quarterfinal match, but they were passed through due to a disqualification, and they ended up winning. So, and when they did lose very thoroughly. So, like I said, there is a chance that it just doesn't go well for you. Um, this deck also only has 4 Pokemon in it, so that's very mulligan prone. You can set your opponent up pretty well using this deck. Let's move on to the next one. The next deck that did very well at Worlds was Roaring Moon EX. Roaring Moon EX, since its debut, has been a pretty powerful card, and that's because its attacks are super good. Frenzied Gouging lets you knock out an opponent's Pokemon, but you take 200 damage when you do that, and then Calamity Storm does 230 damage if there's a stadium in play. So, pretty powerful attacker, really good at destroying things, which is awesome. This deck has a couple different support Pokemon that they utilize, including Pecharunt EX, which can help you get Roaring Moon from the bench into the active spot for free. It also has a pretty decent attack itself with Irritated Outburst, which is only 2 Darkness Energies. It can do up to 300 damage, pretty strong attack. You have regular Roaring Moon in here, which can do a decent chunk of damage as well. Pheasantipity EX is a great consistency card. Squawkabilly EX can help you reset your opening hand. So lots of really great support Pokemon in this deck, as well as some excellent trainer cards that are going to help you succeed. Professor Sada's Vitality, for example, is going to help you energize your Roaring Moon from the discard pile. Dark Patch does the same thing. It's helping you get those energy back on. If you happen to lose a Roaring Moon, you can re-up and get them going right away. And this deck also has a lot of great ways to get those energy cards into the discard pile. Trekking Shoes, Ultra Ball, Earthen Vessel are all great cards that are going to be able to push energy into the discard pile that you can then attach with cards like Dark Patch and Professor Sada's Vitality. Fantastic deck, pretty solid, easy to put together. The next deck that did very well is a Miraidon Iron Hands deck. This deck um, was a lot different at the very beginning of the Scarlet and Violet era. It utilized a lot of different cards to power up the electric type attackers in this deck. And now it's changed a lot because of those cards being phased out. So the main card in this deck, of course, is Miraidon, and that's because of its tandem unit ability. So once during your turn, you get to search your deck for 2 basic electric Pokemon and then put them on your bench. You're not going to be really using Miraidon to attack. You can, but there's better options. Raikou V, for instance, is a great starting Pokemon with its fleet-footed ability, which is going to let you draw more cards, and its Lightning Rondo attack does great damage as long as your bench and the opponent's bench is full. With Miraidon EX, your bench is going to be full, so you're going to be doing consistently at least over 100 damage with Raikou V. Iron Hands EX is another great attacker thanks to its Amp You Very Much attack, which lets you take 1 extra prize when you knock out an opponent's Pokemon. To make sure that you're going to be doing the most with these Pokemon, we have a Zapdos from the Pokemon Go set, which is going to increase the amount of damage they do by 10 damage. So if that's on the bench, you're going to be doing 10 more damage than you normally would. It's going to help you out. Other attackers in this deck are Blood Moon Ursaluna EX, which can be utilized as a sweeper at the end. The more prizes your opponent has taken, the less energy it costs to use its 240 power attack. So you can finish the game off with Blood Moon Ursaluna with no energy required if need be. To power up all these Pokemon, electric generators in this deck, it's going to let you search the top 7 cards and put some electric energy on them if you find them. It's a great deck. It's pretty consistent. It does have a pretty glaring fighting type weakness, but not a lot of decks play fighting type cards, so pretty solid. You really just need to make sure you hit your electric generators, and you'll be just fine. The next deck is actually one that's made a huge comeback in the last couple of weeks, which is Regidrago V-Star. Regidrago V-Star is a pretty powerful Pokemon because its Apex Dragon attack lets you use the attack of any Dragon Pokemon in the discard pile, and this deck has plenty of powerful dragons that you can shove in the discard. One of those Pokemon is Hisuian Grudra V-Star, and its Rolling Iron attack does 200 damage, which is solid damage output, and makes it so you're going to be taking 80 less damage in the next turn. It also has a great V-Star power, but you're not going to be really utilizing that because it's never going to be on the field. Dragapult EX is another dragon card you can throw in the discard pile, and Phantom Dive does 200 damage as well, plus you're going to be able to place 6 damage counters onto your opponent's bench. Solid attack. Other dragons that are often included in this deck and were included in this one are Giratina V-Star. Its V-Star power allows you to KO any Pokemon on the opposing side of the field, which is an incredibly powerful attack. And Kyurem has an attack that allows you to do 110 damage to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon. Another great spread attack. Now the hard part about Regidrago V-Star is making sure you have the energy to use its attack. The 2 grass, 1 fire energy is kind of difficult to pull off sometimes, but this deck has a lot of great ways to make that happen. The first one that really makes this work is the Teal Mask Ogerpon EX. With Teal Dance, you can put basic grass energy onto the field relatively easy, and then you can use the Energy Switch Trainer card to move those grass energy to Regidrago V-Star. The other card that's going to be very helpful in this deck is Earthen Vessel, which is going to allow you to search for 2 basic energy cards, so you can get your fire and your grass energy when you need it. This deck is a lot of fun. And I did do a video on a deck very similar to this just a couple days ago, so you might want to check that one out and kind of see this deck more in action. The next deck that did well at Worlds is the Raging Bolt Ogerpon combo deck. Raging Bolt EX is one of the first incredibly powerful ancient cards that was released, and its Bellowing Thunder attack does 70 damage times the number of basic energy cards you discard from your Pokemon. So this deck is all about flooding the field with energy and then using Bellowing Roar to knock out anything that you need to knock out. To do that, though, just like in the last deck, getting energy on the field is essential, and so this deck has a lot of different ways to do that. Professor Zada's Vitality, a card we talked about earlier on, helps with that, taking cards from the discard pile and attaching them to ancient Pokemon. So Raging Bolt EX and Sandy Shocks. That's the other card. Oh, it's just a regular Sandy Shocks in there. I picked the wrong one, my bad. Okay, I got the wrong card on there. Oops. Regardless, it's an ancient Pokemon. It can take those energy. The other thing it does, well, I figured it was using this one. The other Sandy Shocks does some energy stuff as well, so that would work as well. This deck is also going to be heavy on energy retrieval cards and super rods, because you're going to want to be able to take that energy and put it back in the deck so that you can reattach it after it's done. Ogerpon is going to take a very similar role in this deck, attaching grass energy, but not needing to transfer them because Bellowing Thunder works on any energy you have in play. So you can load up Ogerpons with energy, and then you can sacrifice them using Bellowing Thunder to do a lot of damage. You only really need 4 or 5 energy to knock out anything that your opponent's going to be playing. When I've played a deck like this, it wasn't as consistent, probably why it didn't do as well as some of the other decks that are up here. It is powerful, though. Don't get me wrong. Lugia V-Star also did well at Worlds, with one person playing it in the top 16. Lugia V-Star, of course, has the great ability Summoning Star. That ability allows you to search for 2 colorless Pokemon that don't have a rule box from your discard pile and then put them onto your bench. And that colorless Pokemon is definitely going to be Archeops. Archeops' Primal Turbo ability lets you search your deck for 2 special energy cards and then attach them to one of your Pokemon, in this case usually Lugia V-Star. Lugia V-Star can then pump out 220 damage attacks and get rid of opponents' stadium cards. Now, because a lot of Art Lugia's friends from its early days have been cycled out, there are now new Pokemon that have taken those cards' place to join Lugia V-Star in battle. One of those such cards is Iron Hands, which you can use either the Legacy Energy, or it doesn't seem like they use the one I use, but Legacy Energy you can attach to Iron Hands EX, and that's going to allow you to use Amp You very much. Blood Moon Ursa Luna, another card we've talked about, can attack for free near the end of the game, doing 240 damage, a very solid attacking option. They also have a Weird V in this deck, which can transfer energy from other Pokemon to it when it joins the field. Raikou V, we've seen, can do a pretty good job attacking, and it can use Legacy Energy for its electric energy cost. And then Cinccino is another basic single prize Pokemon that does more damage the more special energy attached to it, which is perfect since Archeops is going to be attaching special energy. This deck is pretty consistent. As long as you can get that Lugia V-Star and Archeops set up, you're pretty much set to go. Now, a deck that a lot of people thought might actually win the World Championships was the Charizard Pidgeot deck, but it didn't win. It only made it into the top 16, I believe. I don't think there was a top 8 finish for Charizard. Charizard EX deck obviously relies on Charizard EX and its Infernal Rain ability to attach fire energy and then attack with powerful Burning Darkness attacks. It utilizes Pidgeot EX as a quick search card to get you the cards you need to do what you want to do. Arven is a pretty essential card in this deck as it can get you your rare candies and then any tools you might want to use, such as Defiance Band or Technical Machine Evolution to get the cards you want ready to go, like Charizard. And then this version of the deck played a lot of consistency cards. Beaveril for 1, and Squovit, which is a combination that helps you refill your hand every turn. Pheasantipity EX could also be played on the bench to increase the amount of cards in your hand. And this deck, of course, also plays a Radiant Charizard, which is a common card in these decks, which can be used in a pinch to attack late in the game for 250 damage, which is a solid amount. A lot of people thought this deck would do better. It didn't. Could have just been the way the day went, but still a very solid deck. Another deck people expected to be up in the top 16 was the Gardevoir EX deck. This deck utilizes Gardevoir EX to attach energy using Psychic Embrace, and then allows Pokemon to attack. This deck has a lot of Pokemon that rely on having damage on them to do attacks. That would include Drifloon, this Fluttermane card, and this Screamtail card. All 3 of those cards, the more damage they have, the more power they have. So this deck is going to try to set those cards up, give them more hit points with cards like Bravery Charm, and then let them deal damage. This deck also has the new Monkey Dory card from Twilight Masquerade, which can take some of that damage and transfer it over to your opponent's Pokemon. So if the math's just not quite mathing, you can make it work with Adrenabrain. Of course, the Kirlia you're going to want to use, at least until it's rotated, is the Refinement Kirlia, which allows you to discard cards. This is a great card to help you get Psychic Energy into the discard pile so that Gardevoir EX's ability works. The final deck in the top 16 at Worlds was Chien-Pao Baxcalibur, one of the strongest decks released in the Scarlet and Violet era. Chien-Pao EX's Shivery Chill keeps your hand full of energy, and Baxcalibur, once it's on the field, will allow you to attach those energies at will every turn, as many as you'd like. Chien-Pao EX is a great attack in Hail Blade, which, with 6 energy on it on the field, can knock out any Pokemon in the game. And Origin Form Palkia V-Star has another excellent attack in Subspace Swell, which can do over 200 damage as long as the benches are full. It also has a great V-Star power, Star Portal, which can help take energy from the discard pile and put it back into play, which is necessary for this deck to work. This deck is going to be running 4 superior energy retrievals, and that's so that we can keep the energy in the field, in your hand, so you can continuously attack with Chien-Pao. It's a great deck. It's pretty consistent, but obviously could not take on some of the other Pokemon decks that were at the World Championships. If you think all the way back to Iron Thorns EX, it shuts off Shivery Chill. You can use there's a trainer tool card that could shut off Super Cold. There's lots of ways for that deck to beat this one. So every deck has a weakness, but this one still did really well. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching this video on all the great decks that took place top 16 at Worlds this year. Tell me which deck you think you're going to try out. I went over about 9 of them. They were all pretty solid. Which one do you think is one you're going to try? Is there a card that I haven't talked about that you think I should showcase on the channel, make a deck out of? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you soon, trainers. Good luck out there.